The political situation in Europe and indeed the Western world is extremely fluid. Yet, obstructing all the noise of my daily consumption of news, I started noticing the emergence of a new trend. With astonishment and excitement, we are witnessing the birth of a political paradigm shift. The first indication for the arrival of a pan-European spring feeling is the widespread and changed perception of the term populism, away from Nazi labels and the political fringe right corner. Bella Italia leads with example. The second indication is the unfolding and massive public pushback against Angela Merkel's politics and open border policy. A barrage of intensifying and very critical media articles are raining down on Merkel due to her irrational decisions, which ultimately are in constant violation of the German constitution, called Grundgesetz. Even the mainstream media portrays Merkel as ever more politically and personally isolated. Alone during the past few days, there were 44 pieces published reporting and proving the complete failure of Merkel's catastrophic policies. Is Merkel finished? Hello und grüezi. Finally, the wallflower existence of the new right is over. It literally took years in the making, but everywhere in the Western Hemisphere, the well-oiled gears of the neoliberal illusion and deception machinery are coming to a screeching halt. The hypocritical propaganda mask comes off and people from Canada to Australia, from USA to tiny Slovenia, are having enough of the slobbering chorus of self-serving do-gooders and politically correct representatives of the established political parties. Exactly these parties have become unelectable due to their inability to connect with their voter base, also known as real people. It doesn't matter anymore if someone votes conservative or liberal democratic social. The long-term goal of center-right and center-left has been agreed to be a beautiful globalized world with globalized citizens. Quietly and in opposition to all this, the new right has begun to unite under a common populist credo. Populism has found widespread approval in the wider public, and the encrusted structures built and maintained by the political elite start breaking up. The relentless drive towards globalism, with its promised land of milk and honey, seems only accessible for and has benefited a rather small elite fraction of our societies, whereby ordinary people got forgotten and left behind. In the European South, the economic future of a whole generation of young people, especially Italians, Spaniards and Greeks, has been sacrificed on the EU altar built by unelected high priest bureaucrats. The southern EU member countries have been kept on a short leash due to their enormous euro debt, partially held by the European Central Bank. They have endured 20 lost years. Social cohesion, based on identity, dignity, and the social contract between generations, has been eroded into oblivion by liberal elites. Furthermore, mass migration has only benefited the massive asylum industry, yet has almost put in reach the liberal utopian vision of an ethnically diverse, multicultural New World society. Actually, not the migrants are the problem, The problems are our dreadful politicians with their dreadful lies and promises. Brexit, Trump, Le Pen, Wilders, AfD, Kurz and Orban are all the same real-life manifestations of an underlying wider populist trend which enables the quiet masses to find again their long-lost voices and peacefully rally against the privileged ruling elites. Also for decades it has been repeated like a mantra. The only possible and inescapable future ahead shall be a globalized world which everyone has to embrace. People in the Western world are awakening, and the abandoned memories of own traditions, own sovereign nation-states are re-emerging with the magical catalyst of the unifying force of political populism. The devastating effects of rampant globalism unleashed onto unprotected European nation-states caused people to lose their self-confidence and filled their hearts with fear. Borders, economy, security, identity and culture, everything was put in question. Yet the ordinary people have never been asked if they actually want all of this. Due to the false promises branded as doctrine of salvation and hope, globalization found its way even into remotest corners of our European Alps. Now the pendulum has reached its peak and starts swinging in opposite direction. In sheer panic and in a laughable way, the established political parties patching up their party manifestos with formerly despised new right ideas and values in an attempt to stem the unstoppable drain of their voter base. Bavaria's CSU party leads the pack, and Merkel's CDU party, once known as a beacon of stability, has embraced Mrs. Merkel's dowry, a compulsive disorder of utter self-destruction. If the present SPD-CDU-CSU coalition should fall apart, the relic Merkel desperately tries to realign herself with her like-minded soul, Claudia Roth, from the Green Party, which serves as an insurance policy. Lovely comrade Roth is in the center of a scandal after recently interrupting a minute of silence requested by the Alternative for Germany party AfD for a young German victim murdered by an asylum seeker. In 2015, though, her own minute of silence for drowned Syrian victims of Merkel's open door policy was held undisturbed and uninterrupted. The real winner of all this nonsense is the AfD. If they position themselves cleverly, they might win big in the regional elections to be held in 2019. In my last video, The Populists, I reported on the Italian election and how the far right and the far left, Lega and Five Stars, found common ground and formed a coalition government. Matteo Salvini's Lega is embracing the three new right principles of traditionalism, nationalism and populism, whereby Luigi Di Meijo's five-star movement only really embraces populism. It doesn't matter though, because as said before, the common denominator is populism, which is enough to build bridges. And with independent Giuseppe Conte on the helm as new Prime Minister, a functioning government is finally in place. The first decision was to change the migration stance massively. The first test of strength is already passed, having partially closed ports for the migrant traffickers. Hopefully, this will become the new reality in Italy. Meanwhile, what are Merkel and friends doing? Said Honourable Lady, in unison with the reptiles of Brussels, try desperately to cling on to the idea of universal humanity. For Merkel, Juncker, Selmayr, Oettinger and Verhofstadt, national interests are immoral and egocentric. Open borders are an act of repentance and is communicated as moral imperative. In their state of delusion, they prescribe more and more of the same medicine. They are stonewalling, scheming, threatening, blackmailing. They are gossiping out of touch with reality and absolutely don't listen to anyone and nobody. As a result, even Mr. Reineck Seehofer reached the point where he defends his asylum policy with newfound bravado against an autistic Merkel who suffers acute old age stubbornness. To top it all, he met with Sebastian Kurz and Italian Interior Minister Matteo Salvini to discuss the border issues. A fresh breeze is suddenly replacing the morbid and stale EU air. The petition for reinstatement of German borders has reached in shortest time the additionally required signature threshold and shall be scheduled for discussion in the German Bundestag. The famous photo taken at the recent G7 summit in Quebec tells more than 1,000 words. As expected, Merkel and Trudeau didn't listen to President Trump's trade policy suggestions. Merkel contains her anger, yet feeds the German mainstream fake news media accordingly. Yet problems are waiting around every corner, and Kurz outshines Merkel on the European political stage. Except her own entourage and perhaps her loyal stepson Justin Trudeau Merkel, nobody is listening to her empty and sententious phrases. No one seems to be willing anymore to share the responsibility for her open border mass migration policies, which have gone so terribly wrong and are dividing and wrecking Europe. The rodents are leaving the sinking ship. The era Merkel draws to a close. All links are added. Please share, like, subscribe and press the bell. Thank you and stay well.